Okay, so I really do not like politics. You might not be able to tell it from these last few or a couple of three videos. I am trying really hard to finish up this particular topic in this video, so I have grabbed my notes and filled it up so that way, because my brain tends to go in different directions, I get tangential and I ramble a little bit. So I'm trying to avoid that by actually making notes on topics to cover as quickly as possible so that I can finish up this topic and get back to just strictly Buddhist topics after this. This was just very important for me to discuss politics as it relates to Buddhism, because we have to have sort of this neutrality in Buddhism while also being able to recognize when a government or a specific person or even a group of people are doing things deliberately to hurt others. Um, Considering the fact that we as Buddhists want to live in a world um, where people don't harm other people, because we take it upon ourselves to um, try to decrease our own suffering, but also not to do actions that can cause suffering to others. And it's important to, as a Buddhist, to try to um, to leave the world a better place than what we found it when we came along. And I feel like that's true. So because of that, if I see a group that seems to be attempting to hurt others, um, that even though technically I can't change their actions, I can't stop them, um, I can at least speak about it and try to make people aware of not just that it's happening, because that it's happening doesn't really change anything, but try to get down to the roots of where it's coming from. And we may have a potential solution to try to decrease the people that are going to suffer at the hands of that other group. There isn't an easy solution to this one, but I'll see if I can get enough time at the end to talk about a potential solution to the issues at hand. So I'm going to start with following up on the free speech, and just before I do, also I know I honestly, like, when I started making these videos, I didn't expect to get any views, hardly at all, maybe one or two, three at most. Um, Really, nobody's going to be interested in watching my whole tangential rambling stuff. So um, I feel like the YouTube channel is probably the most accurate um, uh, understanding of people actually at least beginning the video, because you actually have to click on the video. Whereas like TikTok and stuff like that, you're just scrolling through and it may count it as a view just because you scrolled past it. So, I think there's a couple of videos that had as many as 16 views on YouTube. So the 100 and something could have been people scrolling on TikTok or whatever. So, so if you watch this whole video all the way through, um, I'm going to mention something at the end, so I know that, like, because some people may just click on it and not watch the whole thing. I'm going to mention something to include into your comment. If you could comment at the end of the video, I'm going to include something at the end of the video to include in the comment as proof that you actually watched it all the way through. That way I know if anybody actually watches this from beginning to end. And I just have my doubts that any of the 16 or how many ever people have even clicked on my video on the YouTube channel, that anybody's actually watching these things all the way through. And it would be good for me to know if anybody could comment and include what I'm going to tell you at the end of the video, to let me know that people are actually watching it. I'm following up on free speech because I had deleted some of videos on my phone in order to even have space on my phone to do it, and then I didn't actually delete it from my trash. So so what happened is my memory space on my phone was still limited, and so I had to cut my video off really fast and wasn't able to thoroughly really treat the subject because I could see my phone was going to shut off my timing. So because of that, I didn't really get to finish it, and I actually went back and not only deleted a bunch of videos, but I also deleted everything out of my trash, so that way hopefully I have enough time to fully treat these topics as quickly as possible. And so I'm just going to follow through with my notes and try to stay on topic. So the free speech thing and creating harmful stereotypes being something that that is not actually protected by free speech, and not in the sense that if you have an opinion, like if you think that this group of people are idiots, that you can't say it. Of course you can. That is actually protected because it's opinionated. Anything opinionated from a philosophical standpoint, people's intelligences or whatever, is technically protected by free speech. Now, as Buddhists, we wouldn't want to say hurtful or harmful things about other people, but you have every right to, as an American citizen, to do that, and it is protected by free speech. So what I mean about creating these harmful stereotypes is saying things that are demonstrably false, things that harm other people. So an example I gave last time, as I was trying to end the video really quickly, was, the things that that even news casts would say that were demonstrably false, like the female boxer during the Olympics who was said to be trans, who was not trans. So why that was actually hurtful to trans people was because it created this illusion that a trans person, who they would call a biological male, beat up a woman in a boxing ring. And so obviously this is something that, oh my God, this is horrible. A man beating up a woman in the ring, but she was not trans. She was born a woman. And I could get into the details of how we know that this was person who was actually born female with a vagina and all that, but I really don't want to waste too much time. Like I said, I'm kind of limited on time and trying to get through this. So let's get one that may not be quite as let's say debatable. Even though I don't think that one is debatable because there's proof of it, but because it's so recent, people may actually still believe that. So an example would be for something more obvious to people would be how in the 1950s and back, 1950s, 40s, 30s, how harmful stereotypes were created about people of color being criminals. And those stereotypes made people that may not have otherwise been racist get on board with people who were racist because they thought that those stereotypes were true. So when you try to portray all black people as criminals, or more likely even to be criminals, then that creates this hurtful stereotype where people are more prone to racist ideologies. And that's probably a more fitting example, is when you create some sort of stereotype of a group. The Nazis did that about the Jews, creating this stereotype and creating them as an enemy. One more recent is immigrants being criminals, which is actually statistically untrue. A very, very small percentage of immigrants are actually criminals, and most of the violent crimes are actually committed by American citizens. So when you create these harmful stereotypes and you try to portray groups in that way. And we're going to come back to this as we get into it, and I'm going to show all these harmful stereotypes that are deliberately being created in order to brainwash people into embracing this administration's policies that are harming people. But these are things that are demonstrably false, and people that are embracing these ideologies are more prone to harming people because of them. So that's the creating of the harmful stereotypes. So let's talk about a person that I don't know if my viewers, if anybody's actually watching this, if you know who Alex Jones was. Some of you may know, some of you may not know. So it's important to recognize that Republicans and even MAGA people aren't actually stupid. And it is something that I see a lot. I've done it too, just, out of frustration and anger, but that's not really technically the Buddhist way to do things, where you get so frustrated with the misinformation that is out there, that's saying things that you perceive as crazy because it's demonstrably false, where they embrace these ideologies. They're not actually stupid. A lot of them are actually very intelligent people. That there is a level of brainwashing that has been occurring, and really even before the 1990s. I think it picked up in the 1990s as technology increased and communications increased, especially after the dot-com boost of the internet age with social media picking up and everything. Where misinformation was able to spread more rapidly. So brainwashing has been happening. And I really feel like the 1990s was where it's really they started fanning the flames of it. Social media wasn't a big thing back then, but DVDs became a thing. And then after the DVDs, as the dot-com boom happened towards the beginning of the 2000s, I know MySpace was probably the first social media outlet, but then after that, things like Facebook and YouTube, and actually YouTube may have even been before MySpace. I'm not 100% sure on the dates they created those, but it was towards the beginning of the 2000s that those social media outlets became more prevalent. And then other forms of social media began to pick up after that. And so the brainwashing really exploded after social media because of all the misinformation and the way it allows that to happen. Well, Alex Jones started gaining his popularity really in the 1990s, but there were brainwashing experiments and studies that were even done before the 1990s. And one of the things is because of the Cold War, Russia and the United States were experimenting a lot and studying brainwashing a lot. And I don't remember who it was or where I read this, but I know one of the things that they found was that if you bombarded people with messages of fear and made them really, really scared, fear mongering, what happened was when you made people scared enough for long enough, no amount of truth could make them switch their opinion. So it's really important to have accurate information to dispel the myths from the onset, because you're not going to easily unbrainwash a lot of these far-right people who have embraced MAGA once they have embraced that fear of all these other people that are out to get them and stuff like that. And a lot of that started with Alex Jones. There were a lot of different conspiracy theorists out there, but he was probably one of the most prominent. And Trump actually got elected because of Alex Jones. Alex Jones was known for disavowing both political parties, Republicans and Democrats. And so I remember seeing him one time with a bullhorn, sitting there in front of Bush well, I don't know if it was Bush's house or if it was the Capitol building in Texas, but it was before he was president. It was while the Bush Jr. was not the daddy Bush, but the Junior Bush was still president, or not president, but before he was president of the United States. It was while he was governor of Texas, and he stood out there and was like, and I think that was one of the attractive things for a lot of people that embraced Alex Jones' ideology, was because it seemed like, from their perspective at the time, that he was disavowing both political parties. So he was, in their mind, trustworthy because he was trying to bring to light the corruption and stuff like that was going on in government, and his conspiracy theories kind of tricked a lot of people. Fast forward to 2016, really 2014, 2015. I'm not sure specifically what the date was when he began to promote Donald Trump, but Donald Trump actually ran for president 2 times before the 2016 run, and he did not win, obviously. So what changed in 2016 to where he actually got the Republican nomination was Alex Jones endorsed Donald Trump, and called Donald Trump his friend, and started letting all of his followers know. Somebody who had never endorsed any political party or anything before suddenly was endorsing Donald Trump. So they all went and voted, and in the Republican primary, once Donald Trump became the Republican nominee, the diehard Republicans who didn't follow somebody like Alex Jones, who didn't know or believe in any of the real major conspiracy theories at the time, felt it their obligation to embrace the Republican nominee, because they would die before they'd vote for a Democrat. And so Donald Trump then was able to shift to getting a bunch of Republican votes, and in the end won the presidency 2016, starting his first term in 2017. So that's basically, Alex Jones was responsible for Donald Trump's first presidency. A lot of people don't know that, but that's an important fact to realize, because of the misinformation spread by Alex Jones and how they're brainwashing people. Because this person, and I believe it was Sandy Hook, if I'm remembering that accurately, Sandy something, but I believe it was Sandy Hook, where there was a school shooting, and Alex Jones said that they were all paid actors, that the children didn't exist, that the parents of the children who allegedly didn't exist were the parents were actors who didn't actually have children or whatever, and so the Alex Jones followers believed that. And what happened was they believing that, went out and began harassing the parents who had just had children who had died in a school shooting. So their children died in a school shooting, and then they have all these people come up harassing them saying, "You're a paid actor," and yada, yada, yada. Well, they sued Alex Jones, and this is a good example, a real-life example of why that's not free speech. This is not like an opinion. This is something demonstrably false. These children really existed, and they really died, and their parents were really suffering because of their children's death. So Alex Jones, spreading this misinformation, got these people into this mentality of wanting to do something about the corruption that they thought was happening, that they had paid actors, and the idea was that they were doing this to take away the Second Amendment right to own guns. So what happened was they took it to court, and they proved that it was a lie, that they had children that actually died in this a tragic event of a school shooting. And Alex Jones was basically sued into oblivion. I don't know if he's still on air or not. I don't really follow Alex Jones. I listened to him years ago in order to try to determine if it was true or false, and so I always give people a fair share of my mind in order to try to determine if what they're saying is true or not. I feel like I have an open mind to try to understand where people are coming through and determine based on the evidence if it's true or not. I determine personally, based on a lot of different things that I don't have time to get into here, that the information was false. The factors would take me several hours to go through all the things that I realized were just unfactual. The point is that he harmed a lot of people. That's not free speech. And this is what you see that happens, and it's a really good example because it's from real life. When you spread misinformation about a group of people, in this case it was the parents of children whose children had died in a school shooting, that was the group of people that were harmed. It was unfactual information, it was demonstrably false, and that was why they were able to sue Alex Jones. And I think the amount that was declared by the court was something close to $1 billion. I think it was slightly under $1 billion, something around an 800 million mark or something. I don't remember the specific number, but it was something like that. They were able to sue and win in court because it's not protected free speech when you are spreading known misinformation that is clearly incorrect, and that causes harm to that group of people. And imagine you have a child that gets shot to death in a school, and then somebody comes up to you and calls you a liar that you didn't have any children, and harasses you and says you're a paid actor by the government in order to take away the Second Amendment. That is something very, very harmful, and this type of thing can happen to other types of groups, is what we're trying to get here, is that free speech is something opinionated, like that person's an idiot, I hate that person, I think that is a terrible president, those are opinionated things that cannot be taken away. We have a right to that free speech. When you say this person is a pedophile, for example, or this person's child didn't really exist, for example, or this person did these specific crimes, and you can prove that it happened or didn't happen, it's only protected free speech if it's true. If you can at least give some sort of reasonable argument that this person might have very well done that. This may very well be true, and this is my perspective on it, then okay. But if you can demonstrate that it's false, it's not protected free speech. Okay, so what they did was and Alex Jones, this is one example of a real life thing that he did that harmed other people. But he has had many different conspiracy theories where he has convinced people, and this is the bombardment of fear-mongering that has alienated certain groups and made them afraid of certain groups. One of them, so he's always taken this thing of, no, Republicans and Democrats are two sides of the same coin, and that they were. And so he never endorsed any political party. However, he went after the fear-mongering against the Democratic Party, and basically the Republican Party was a lesser evil. It just wouldn't, that your Second Amendment would be protected if you voted for a Republican, but nothing would really change. The government would continue to operate in an evil way. The agendas would still get passed for the elite, and it would just be slower death. So he took this perspective that there was no imminent fear or hatred towards Republicans. It just wasn't the solution. But the Democrats were actually overtly evil in his ramblings. So So what this did is it created this fear for Democrats. And some of the things that he would do is, like, for example, he said that Democrats were Satanists that like killing babies. So when you create this idea or this perspective that Democrats are just people that are Satanists who hate babies, and you have a group of people that actually believe that, and you bombard them with this fear over and over and over again, as crazy as it sounds that somebody would actually believe that all Democrats are Satanists who want to kill babies, they actually believe this. And he bombarded people with this lie for years and years and years, so that if you believe that, what's going to happen is it becomes imperative to fight against Democrats at all costs, because you believe in your mind and through that brainwashing that you are fighting for the lives of people, that these people are going to establish a satanic government and kill people. Okay. Another thing would be like, and here is really the essence of how to know that this is all false. Any conspiracy theory, I mean, any conspiracy could happen. JFK may have been murdered by, multiple people. There was a lot of weird stuff that happened that day with John F. Kennedy's assassination. There are conspiracies that could, in fact, happen. They usually are a very narrow group knows about it, and it's not massive conspiracy from many different millions of different people all involved, and it doesn't span multiple generations. It's a conspiracy that they conspire to do something that they want for that day, and then they cover it up as best they can, and then it gets left alone. That's a legitimate conspiracy that could happen. Who was involved with JFK's murder? Was it just, I believe his name was Oswald, or was it another entity that wanted him dead? It's impossible to say exactly, but something strange happened that day. Okay, that's a potentially legitimate conspiracy where we can't really say for sure one way or the other. But when you get into these conspiracy theories where it takes the entire scientific community, so they use the word scientific community as something so ambiguous that in the clouded mind of somebody who's been bombarded with this fear-mongering technique to brainwash people, so that you just think of it as a small group of people in a room that are scientists that are just trying to deceive people. And that would sound almost reasonable, because a small group of people, it could happen, right? Well, the scientific community are doctors, nurses, teachers, engineers, inventors, anybody with a scientific degree, master's degree, PhDs, and use that degree in their daily life. Anything like that, okay, is a scientist. So the lab techs who after your blood is drawn, they go and observe the drawing of your blood, basically the substance, the blood. I don't know all the scientific terms anymore. It's been a long time, but basically they take your blood and they observe the specimen in a lab, see if there's something in there, and they do studies to see if your hemoglobin levels or whatever. Those people are scientists, microbiologists, all those things. There are millions and millions and millions of scientists worldwide. Okay, it's not just some small tight-knit community that of less than 100 people who sit into a room and try to decide truth and brainwashing Americans. That's not what the scientific community is. If you understand what the scientific community is, you understand that it is literally impossible. It's not even like a micro possibility. it is literally impossible for them to be involved in a worldwide conspiracy to harm people. There may be a crazy scientist who likes eugenics. Okay, that may exist, but there are also plenty of scientists who want to better humanity. That's why they became a scientist. There are also scientists in the middle who don't care one way or another. There are scientists of all types of political views and and different perspectives, different religions, all over the world. You wouldn't be able to get the entire scientific community to partake in a conspiracy. You wouldn't be able to get all the doctors in the world to partake in a conspiracy. It's just false. Anything that requires entire scientific community is false. So this whole idea he spread about vaccines, vaccines and eugenics to kill people and to harm people. Okay, a vaccine is created in order to help our immune system protect itself against certain illnesses. Okay, vaccines are not going to be perfect, just like any medication. Even the Tylenol you take has potential adverse effects depending upon your biological makeup. When you take aspirin, Tylenol, Advil, any medication on the market could have adverse effects. That's going to be true for any vaccine as well, potential adverse effects, because what they have to do is they put the actual illness in your body. In order to do that safely, they have to either kill or weaken the disease in a way that it doesn't harm you. Because if they just put the smallpox into your body, or whatever they're trying to vaccinate you for, the flu into your body, they're just giving you the illness, and that they can't do that. That's not right, because they'd just be making you sick. The idea is to try to protect you from sickness. So they have to put things into the vaccine in order to weaken or kill the sickness. Well, what happens is that some of the things that they put to weaken or kill the virus could potentially cause an adverse effect to you. That's why it takes years and years and years of developing a vaccine properly so that it does not harm people, because they have to study the effects of the other things that they put into the vaccine in order to to deactivate the virus or kill the bacteria or weaken the bacteria, so that once you're exposed to the vaccine, you're only exposed to the immune response, so that you can your body can fight against it if it sees it in real life, in real time, without causing too many adverse effects. Well, some people are allergic to things. Some people are allergic to nuts. Okay, some people are allergic to shellfish, but not all of us. So these are just natural things out in nature that a lot of people eat without any problem, and some people eat it and they have an allergic reaction. Same thing with vaccines or any medication, where you could say like 98-99% of people that receive that vaccine, and their body does what most people's bodies do, and then you have a certain percentage of people that may have some sort of allergic reaction to that. Doctors will always ask you if you're allergic to any medications. Now, if I knew I was allergic to a medication, it's because it's been put in my body before and then I had the allergic reaction. Otherwise, it's like, well, I mean, if I've never received that medication, I'm not going to know that I'm allergic to it. So at some point, you could receive a medication or a vaccine and have an allergic reaction. You didn't know you were allergic, but now you do. Now you know not to put it back in your body. And that's, unfortunately, the only way to know if you're allergic to something is have it put in your body. So vaccines are as safe as they possibly can be. There are some illnesses that have been stopped altogether. It's just like the measles outbreak in Texas right now could have been prevented by having those children vaccinated. But these anti-vaccination things are harming people. And all of this anti-vax rhetoric, those parents, like the child who died and the parents who have children who have been sick with the measles, dying in a hospital bed, hopefully they survive, but definitely going to feel like they're dying in a hospital bed. All of these children in Texas, their parents could take a lawsuit against everybody who has been, because that's not free speech. This rhetoric has been propagated, fear-mongering, something that's demonstrably false, that these vaccines actually save lives. They do not harm people. And now that the repercussions are being experienced by these children, their parents could take these people to court that have propagated that false notion that these vaccines would hurt them and win. Okay? That's not free speech. That they have propagated false information that's demonstrably false for so long that these people have not vaccinated their children out of fear that it was going to harm their children, thinking they were doing the right thing for the children. So it's really not the parents' fault. They believed some information that was false. It's the fault of the people that are propagating that false information, that misinformation. So you have these vaccines. Okay, climate change. Again, I don't know the science well enough to know if climate change is happening. I've heard arguments both ways. I am not a scientist. I studied genetics in college. I studied biology 1, biology 2, anatomy, physiology, so I have a base knowledge in science when I got my bachelor's degree. And I can do well with certain scientific terms and things like that, and read a study and know what it means. And I have particularly stronger knowledge in the biologies than I do physics and things like that. But I'm not an actual scientist. It's a lot of information. It's really hard to know. What I do know is that if 99% of the scientific community is saying that climate change is happening, there's no way you would have 99% of the scientific community saying that climate change is happening unless they believe that it's happening. It's not a conspiracy. It's not the government trying to take control of your mind. It is literally impossible to have 99% of the scientific community agreeing that something is happening unless they believe that it's happening. Could 99% of the scientific community be wrong? That is actually possible. But there's a difference in it being a conspiracy of scientists out to harm you and just, interpreting the data incorrectly. These conspiracy theories, climate change being one of them, is something that could cause harm in the future when people are in the government trying to disband all of the protections we are doing for our environment, because they believe these conspiracy theories. Evolution. Evolution, and it's good to know the difference between a hypothesis and a theory. I've heard scientists use the word theory when they should use the word hypothesis, so that can be confusing for people. The evolution theory has a lot of evidence to it. There are many different Christians. It's not just atheists. See, a lot of people think it's just the atheists trying to take control of our mind. It's not. There's a lot of Christians. There's a lot of religious people who believe the science behind the theory of evolution. There is a lot of different types of mentalities, and it's like, well, God could have created the world and then made it in a way that it would evolve and develop over time. Just because somebody believes in the theory of evolution does not make them an atheist, and it's not a conspiracy theory, because when you have that many scientists behind it, it is literally impossible for the entire scientific community to be on board with something and it be a conspiracy. Okay, so these are just examples that I'm running through. I made my notes to remind myself to mention them. So some of the more like vaccines is one that actually is affecting people. It's causing deaths because we're bringing back illnesses that we had done away with in a long time. There hadn't been a single measles death in I believe like 10 years, a whole decade, and now you got children dying in Texas because of these conspiracy theories. So another one that Alex Jones propagated in order to make people scared was, and it also alienates a specific group because again, he's getting people riled up against the scientific community, trying to think that the scientific community is out to get us. So that the scientists are all, this ambiguous notion of the scientists are all out there to get you. So they're all out there doing things to the water or whatever in order to feminize men. And anybody who knows genetics knows that this was probably bound to happen eventually over time, where the X and Y chromosome can actually share information. All chromosomes do this. This is crossing when the chromosomes cross, and in order to create greater variability in human beings, it's not just each chromosome has genes on it, but they can actually jump from one chromosome to the other. Well, the X and the Y chromosome can do this too. They can a gene can jump off of a Y chromosome and onto an X chromosome, and genes can jump off an X chromosome onto a Y chromosome. So from years and years and years ago, you're going to see, the genes that are specific to the X chromosome and specific to the Y chromosome being much more distinct. Okay, but as time goes on, because of the ability to share genes from one chromosome to the other, you're going to see more variability in the sex characteristics as well, and more ambiguity. That's just a natural occurrence that we know scientifically happens. The SRY gene on the Y chromosome develops a penis. That's the gene responsible for that. The SRY gene has been found to jump over to the X chromosome. So you will have people with XX chromosome born with a penis. You also have people with XY chromosomes born with a vagina. That is a reality. It's not some scientific conspiracy to feminize men, but they want to propagate this fear that these people are trying to make men women because they want you to hate transgender and gay people. Okay, and that's something that is one of the boogeymans they want to create. Is LGBT people. There are two main groups that they try to demonize. Two main groups. The scientific community is sort of a scapegoat. They don't really care about scientists one way or the other. Creating the boogeyman of the scientist is a necessary evil in a sense, so that they can scare you into hating other groups. Because when you can make everything scientific up, like we don't know, we can't prove one way or the other because you can't even trust the scientists anymore, suddenly they can say any crazy thing that they want, like vaccines are meant to kill you, that they're feminizing men, and they can say any crazy thing they want, and people will believe it because they've been brainwashed into this fear. Remember, fear-mongering is the tool used for brainwashing. So they're creating a demon. They're creating something that doesn't exist in order to try to scare people into adhering to anything they say. So the feminization of men is not happening. It's just over time you're going to see more ambiguity in sex characteristics scientifically on a genetic level, because even the SRY gene can jump over. All the genes can jump over from one chromosome to the other. So you can have very masculine women born with a vagina, and we see that today. It happens. It's always happened, really, but it's probably becoming more prominent. Absolutely. I mean, I would only expect that knowing what I know about genes and being able to jump from one chromosome to the other. Um, and the I would expect intersex conditions to become more and more prominent. Millions of people worldwide have intersex conditions. And they try to say, well, it's just a small percentage. It is a small percentage, but when you have 8 billion people worldwide, 80 million people is 1%. So even a small percentage is a lot of people. Okay, so you could have, 80 million people worldwide with an intersex condition, a lot of people, okay, and that's still only 1% of the world's population. So, another one is immigration, creating that false notion that immigrants are out to harm you. They use specific terminology like it's an invasion, okay, and trying to say that Democrats, again, the scapegoat, the Democrats, rather than the Republicans, even though he tried to make it look like he was in the middle and neither Republican nor Democrat. He used the Democrats as the actual scapegoat of the actual evil so that they would fear Democrats. Because once you have Trump come in and they had to embrace the Republican side. So even though he disavowed the actual candidates for the Republican Party. So they demonize the Democrats as they're the ones that want to bring in all these immigrants, because if they bring in the immigrants, they just tell the immigrants to vote for them, and you have all these illegal aliens voting and trying to make the Democrats win. Okay. So the scapegoat of the great evil for them is either LGBT people or immigrants. So what you end up producing is this Nazi-like agenda, and what we saw with Project 2025. And when I say a Nazi-like agenda, I'm being very specific in my wording because neo-Nazis are different than actual Nazis. It's my understanding that the Nazi Party fell apart after World War II. So what exists today is called neo-Nazi. That term, it just is the act, and it's not an actual party. It's just people who have Nazi-like ideas, who may even believe that the Nazis were justified in their actions during World War II to harm the Jews, or even Holocaust deniers altogether. That the Holocaust either didn't happen, or even some of them have embraced this idea that it wasn't as bad as what people make it sound like, that it was a much smaller number of people. The Nazis identified the same two groups as enemies. They put gays and transgender people into concentration camps, as well as the Jews. It wasn't just the Jews. And what was the Nazi plan? It was to take the Jews and to put them into these camps so they could gather them together and to remove them from Germany. They did not tell the Germans, we're going to put these Jews in the ovens and we're going to, they didn't say that they were going to kill all these Jews. That's not what they told them. The idea that they propagated during the years of the Nazi rule was to blame the Jews for the problems of Germany, and because if they took the Jews and moved them out of Germany, that would solve a lot of Germany's problems. That's what they said. So it was not to put them in ovens, it was not to kill them, it was just to remove them from Germany. What actually ended up happening was they kept them in these concentration camps and then murdered a lot of them. Some people actually survived this process because they were holding them there in the camp and not just killing them. They were just in very, very poor, unsanitary, horrible conditions, unethical conditions. But they were always at risk of being one of the ones chosen for some sort of science experiment, gassing them or putting them in an oven, killing them off, getting rid of them that way. But the original plan that was propagated was removing them from Germany. So you had the Jews, the immigrants in a sense, the people that were not seen as authentic Germans needed to be removed from Germany, and gay people were also put in concentration camps. Now there were laws that they put into place that made being gay illegal, and they classified transgender within that same category of people, and they arrested gay people and made them wear a pink triangle, and they put them in concentration camps. That were the two groups. It's the same two groups that you see being blamed for all of the United States problems. So that's why I call it Nazi-like, because you're seeing a very similar, you instead of Jews, it's all immigrants, particularly ones from down south with browner toned skins, people like Mexicans or anything south of that border as well. Any Spanish speaking people that are from the southern border are seen as enemies. So the immigrants. So what was the plan? Put them in a camp and deport them. So mass deportations literally was the original Nazi plan. Will they put them in ovens and conduct science experiments on them? I don't know. It's really impossible to know for sure once they go into a camp what kind of conditions they will face. But that's the similarity to the current Nazi agenda or Nazi-like agenda and the original Nazi agenda from the 1930s. Was the original plan was deportation. And they've also identified the enemy of transgender people. Texas is currently looking at a bill to make being transgender, and I said transgender, but LGBT in general. They're trying to make being transgender illegal in Texas right now. There was a bill introduced that calls it gender fraud. And so where somebody, like if a man says that he's a woman or a woman says that she's a man on a government document, they want to charge that person with a felony and put them in prison. And that has not been passed into law into Texas yet as I do this video, but it is currently being looked at by Texas as a potential law that they want to pass. And I believe the start date they said for that law, if it does pass, would be September. So we'll know after September. If you're watching this after September, you can look it up and see if it actually passed through. I don't know if it will or not. But that's the gender fraud bill that is being proposed in Texas as I do this video. There is also a motion to try to get the Supreme Court to look at gay marriage and to make gay marriage where it can be something that the states decide. And so a state, if they can get the Supreme Court to relook at that case and overturn that decision, then they would be able to make states be able to say, we don't want gay marriage in our state. That is always what they do, is little stepping stones to try to of course they want to eventually just make it illegal all across the United States for gay people to get married. So you see these same groups being attacked, and it's important to remember, because a lot of people say, well, gay people are just shoving their stuff down our throat, and I don't care if you're gay, just don't put it out in public. If a man kisses a woman in public, nobody says anything. No, it's like, oh, so cute. If a man kisses a woman in a movie, on a TV show, nobody says anything. Oh, that's so cute. Even in children's movies, the man gets the girl, they kiss. Okay? But if a man kisses a man or a woman kisses a woman in public or in a movie, it's suddenly, oh my God, they're shoving it in my face. It's complete hypocrisy. If you can show a man kissing a woman on live TV, and then you have an ick reaction of a man kissing a man, when you accept that children can watch a man kissing a woman, you're just a hypocrite. That's just the way it is. I mean, and I don't mean that in a rude, condescending way, but it's hypocrisy because, nobody's actually shoving it down your face. If anything, heterosexuality, being straight, is what's been shoved down people's throats. They're the ones trying to shove religion down people's throat with a Christian nationalistic government that Oklahoma made it required for schools to read the Bible in school. That is shoving something down somebody's throat. Nobody is trying to make being straight illegal, but they are trying to make being gay be illegal. And so it's important to remember that, it's like, well, nobody's trying to make being gay illegal. Okay, as early as 21, 22 years ago, 2003, 2004, it was illegal to be gay. In the state of Texas, it was a misdemeanor for two men to have sex. It was, and that's a fact. Okay, and the first state that made it legal, I believe, was Illinois in the 1950s. And then, so all the other 49 states, after that, it was still illegal to be gay. And before that, it was illegal in all 50 states to be gay. So it actually has been illegal very recently in history, and more states started legalizing it by repealing their anti-sodomy laws over time. How do you think Pride Month even happened? Do you think it was just people trying to shove it down your face? 1969, there was a riot that happened because the police were going in and harassing gay people and arresting them. Okay, and in one day in 1969, I believe towards the end of June, which is why June was chosen as Pride Month, towards the end of June in 1969, there was a riot that broke out because the gay people that were being harassed that day by the police to be arrested decided to fight back and throw bricks at them. That is a reality. That is a fact. Pride Month wasn't shoving it down your throat. Pride Month was something that happened because the police were harassing gay people, and it is something that was illegal very recently. These people didn't just disappear and stop hating gay people because it became legal in the early 2000s. It's something that has been, they're fighting to get back to where it was. If it was illegal even as early as 21, 22 years ago, if it was illegal, do you think these people aren't trying to get it back to where it was? I mean, absolutely, and that's why they're trying to get the Supreme Court to relook at that decision, so that they can make gay marriage illegal in their individual states as a stepping stone towards trying to push towards the national ban, because they are absolutely trying to target gay people. And this whole idea that gay people are pedophiles is nonsense, because the majority of pedophilia actually happens, or harming children, sexual assault on children happens mainly by priests and youth pastors. And that's just a statistical fact. But nobody's sitting here trying to say we need to ban the church because that's where most sexual assaults happen on children. They're trying to create the LGBT boogeyman and try to make you hate them. And in order to make you hate them, they have to make them look like evil people, like demons that are trying to hurt and kill children, and they're trying to get your children. It's just not the case. And so they create all these false things that are demonstrably false. That's why it's not covered by free speech. Demonstrably false, in order to make people believe that gay people and transgender people are evil and trying to harm children. All of that is just false. And that it was part of some elite that was using the ambiguous scientists in order to try to feminize men. Okay, and that's somehow part of the elite's conspiracy to destroy America. Because making men women would somehow destroy America. Okay, so those are the types of things. False information started mainly, and I mean other people had said this stuff before, and other conspiracy theorists have these types of beliefs and things, but Alex Jones was the prominent figure who pushed a lot of it. So this is their Nazi-like agenda that they're pushing, and as a full circle towards the end of my first video, they're doing it rapidly, using illegal means to push it, when they could have even done it. Some of these changes could have been done legally. So when you have, like, for example, the firing of the AGs, or IG, Inspector Generals, I'm sorry, not AGs, the firing of the Inspector Generals, Congress would have handed that to him. Okay, he was supposed to give Congress a 30-day notice before firing them. He was not allowed to just fire them, and he just went and fired them. So you can almost suspect the reason that was done, because the 30-day notice, of course Congress would have handed it to him if he had have asked Congress to do it, but then that would have forced them to go on record and give a reason why they're being fired, and they didn't want to do that. So you can kind of suspect why they chose the illegal route rather than the legal route. But some of it is just mind-boggling, unless they're just trying to force things through rapidly so that they can do this to create a more Nazi-like or a more fascist-like government. Because Trump, okay, in his first term, he never pushed something so fascist-like as he is now, because Trump doesn't actually care about that. Trump just wants to be seen as a great man, a great president, because he is a narcissist. He wants everybody to see him as good and hates it when people have an ill opinion of him. So when he committed crimes in the Oval Office and they tried to push for his conviction and imprisonment, he needed this new term in order to smash those cases. Well, obviously he's going to be afraid that once this term is over, that they will try to come back after him and arrest him again. So the only way to permanently erase those criminal charges would be to align himself with these neo-fascists. So the actual neo-fascists that are pushing this is not actually Trump, even though he does have a history of racism and misogyny and all that, and he is in fact a narcissist. But his goal is just staying out of prison. So the neo-fascists, the people involved with Project 2025, step in and say, hey, if you follow our agenda, and create this type of government, we can promise that you will never go to prison. Okay, so that becomes sort of a way to, even though, because most of the Republican Party wouldn't have been on board with all this if they really knew and believed it, that was actually going to happen or could happen, because Trump didn't do all this in his first term. This was a result of Project 2025. The people involved or the people who promoted and wrote Project 2025, they knew that if they aligned themselves with Trump, Trump would be against a wall, and their agenda would protect him from future persecutions. Okay, in his mind, they're persecutions, not prosecutions. But in reality, they're just prosecutions because he actually committed those crimes. He was convicted by his peers for 34 counts of felonies that were actually dealing with fraud. It wasn't because he slept with the porn star. It was the fraud involved. Those are felony accounts. Okay, but the misinformation and all that stuff. Well, so Trump needs this presidency to smash those cases, but in order for them to stay smashed and not get brought up again, is going to require, him aligning himself with the Project 2025 people, and that's so you see this Nazi-like agenda is a very small group of people, but they're very closely aligned with Trump because of the fact he is just trying to stay out of prison. So he needs an authoritarian government. They wanted the authoritarian government because they wanted Christian nationalism. They don't actually care about the Constitution. They want to do away with the Constitution, which is interesting because the very people that were involved with getting Trump elected, Alex Jones and his followers, have always preached about the Constitution. The only thing that's going to be left of the constitutional rights we have from the first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights, is the only thing that's going to be left in that Constitution or the Bill of Rights is the Second Amendment. They're going to literally strip away the First Amendment right to freedom of religion because they want a Christian nationalist government. So, and then they have to choose. And so remember, just because you're a Christian doesn't mean like, oh, that's okay because I'm a Christian, so I'm okay, right? No, actually, you're going to get persecuted too because they'll have to choose a specific brand of Christianity and a specific set of beliefs and doctrines that they want propagated based on their interpretation of that Bible that you like so much. So you'll get persecuted too in the future. That's a guarantee. We talked about that, how that actually happens that way, which is why the American government, when it was founded, wanted to say no established religion because they knew that other Christian groups would eventually persecute you as a Christian. So what happens is that the First Amendment, freedom of religion, is already gone. Well, you can already see how Trump doesn't want anybody speaking against him or saying anything negative. So your freedom of speech, free press is pretty much going to be out the window. It's pretty much already going out the window as we speak because they won't even let certain they're trying even to take away media licenses away. But just basically anybody who speaks against the government is not allowed. So freedom of speech and freedom of religion are from the First Amendment are gone. Due process is being subverted. Is being it's being taken away because you have to take away due process in the Nazi-like agenda because you can't have people actually going to trial. So what they're trying to do is, the immigrants, that's an easy one because it's just ICE picking them up and deporting them. They don't have to actually take them to court and prove that they're illegally here, and they don't get a chance to prove that they're actually legally here with a green card or even a birth certificate. They don't get that chance. There is no due process. If they pick them up, they don't have to take them to court. They don't get all their other due process amendments. They just get shipped out into another country, even if they were born here. That is a legitimate possibility. Is that happening yet? I don't know. If I've heard some scary situations where people who were legal citizens or people with green cards have gotten picked up. One of them has, I remember reading a story where it has essentially vanished because they couldn't find out what facility the person's being held at. Did they get back in contact with that person? That I don't know. So it's really hard to say for sure, how much to what extreme it'll be taken to before people start waking up and stopping this nonsense. But due process is being challenged, and the rest of the amendments, most of them, are mostly due process amendments in the Bill of Rights. So your whole, constitutional rights is just being eroded. Well, the original Republican platform was smaller government, the idea of state rights. Well, this is a very strong federal government trying to rule very strongly in the states, which is not the original Republican platform. So what you see is you see the 10th Amendment also being destroyed. So literally the only thing that's going to be left after this, if they push through their agenda, is the Second Amendment, because they'll probably let you keep your guns. You just can't say anything against the government. You can't believe anything that is not a part of the religious affiliation of the government. And you get no due process, and it's a strong federal government, no state rights. Okay? So all of that is very important to see what's actually happening, that this is a very Nazi-like agenda. So my last part of this video, and I'm really trying hard to end this, like I said, and get away from politics and just go back to Buddhist stuff. But what is the solution to this? Unfortunately, the solution is something I do not believe Democrats will do, or Republicans either. Because I think the fight is maybe even part of the plan, like that they like. I've expressed before, I think there's corruption on both sides, that maybe the Democrats want this fight as much as the Republicans do. So I don't think that it'll actually be done, but because it's going to be what I'm going to offer as a solution is not going to be something that anybody who hates Trump is going to like as a potential solution, because one of the things that we've touched on is even though I'm not a Trump supporter, and I voted for Kamala Harris, but one of the things that we see happening is once the fight gets taken so far as it has been, because Trump was already taken to court and convicted of 34 felony counts, and the amount of overt, obvious corruption, that it's not just corruption, because all politics, they involve themselves in some level of corruption, whether it's Republican or Democrat. But right now the government has done so much illegally, deliberately, that it's like they've reached the no turning back stage. So this no turning back stage, basically, what if Democrats took complete control of the government again? What happens? Okay, so let's just say Democrats take back the House, take back Congress in the next couple of election cycles, special elections, and the midterms and all that. And then come back 4 years later and win the presidency and have both chambers of the House and the Senate, and then let's say even somehow get control of the Supreme Court again, which is really improbable because it's 6-3 right now. But let's just say that happens and you get all this control back for the Democrats. What's going to happen? Well, Republicans are going to understand, because they have taken it as far as they have, that there's a good chance that Democrats will want retribution, or to prosecute those involved with all of this blatant criminal activity that's going on right now, doing things overtly, obviously against the law, that are obviously corrupt. They're not trying to hide it. It's just straight up in your face. um, with Doge and everything that's going on. So what's going to happen is because they know that that's what's likely to happen, and there's Democrats are not going to give them any reason to believe that it isn't going to happen that way. Because of that, they're going to fight tooth and nail to not let Democrats ever get in charge again. And so by the end of this 4 years, they're going to try to stronghold the government in such a way where there's no ripping it out of their hands. Which means that everything's going to come to a head at some point, unfortunately, where it looks like that both sides are going to deem bloodshed being the only thing that would be the thing that could make things right. And so we're heading towards that. The only way to prevent that is the same thing they did in the Civil War. Because once you push that button and start shooting at each other, and you have all these people dying, it's like, if they give up now, they're traitors, right? So they're going to get death if they give up, or they're going to get death fighting on the battlefield. They're just going to keep fighting until they die, right? So what did they do for the Civil War in order to heal a country? They forgave and gave everybody pardons. So the solution that nobody's going to accept, no, I don't think anybody's going to accept, but the only solution for healing this country is before bloodshed comes, because I don't want to see the country go to that, but before bloodshed comes, is to find a soft way to funnel Republicans into understanding that if they can desist in this overt corruption that's going on and illegal activity that's going on, that they can be pardoned and forgiven and sort of given a clean slate. Because otherwise they've already gone past the point of no return. Because once Democrats take charge again, if they've involved themselves in that corruption, they're done for if Democrats. So they're going to fight. It's just like, it's death if I do or death if I don't. Well, they're going to feel like it's, death or imprisonment if I do, or death, imprisonment if I don't, unless they win completely. Like either way is a death sentence, unless they, obviously if you win the Civil War, in a sense, you didn't die, that's your way out, right? Well, it's the same thing here. It's like their chance at saving themselves is only winning, and losing and fighting it through is death or imprisonment. Well, not fighting it through and letting the Democrats get in charge would feel like, for them, death or imprisonment. So it's past that point where if they involve themselves in the corruption, they can't win unless they actually fight it through and win both. Because fighting it through and losing gets, the same results as what they would see as the same results of Democrats getting control again. So they're just going to fight it through, and they're going to maintain this level of corruption. That's the only thing they can do. So what is going to likely occur, because Democrats are probably just going to push and push and push, is that things are going to get to a point of open hostility between both sides. And that's why this is the only way, what I'm saying is the only way to heal a country is something that most people think is crazy, because, they should be held accountable. But if you don't do it, if you don't do what they did in the Civil War by forgiving, then you're just going to end up with bloodshed. So what's likely to happen is Nazis, the neo-Nazis, are not going to be the same as the original Nazis. So there's a lot of fear going on, like basically that things are going to literally happen the same, that they're going to put pink triangles on LGBT people and put them in concentration camps, and they're going to put all the immigrants in concentration camps, and they're literally just going to have a second Hitler in there. That's not going to happen that way. It's going to be very similar, because the hatred and ideology is similar, but it's not going to be precisely the same. And if you're looking for it to be precisely the same, you're always going to be fighting the wrong battles. You have to look at what is actually going on and their actual tactics and their actual gameplay. There is a chance that Trump will attempt to start World War III so that once chaos erupts from a World War III situation, they can declare a national emergency in such a way that suspends the Constitution and gives them a rite of passage to do what they want and keep Trump in charge, or whether because they could suspend the elections during wartime. So that is most likely their gameplay as far as that is concerned, is to start World War III. The pushing for Canada to be the 51st state, which is insane, is something that Trump actually believes in. So by hitting him with the tariffs, Trump hopes to weaken their economy enough to where that they don't feel like they have a choice. They have to get annexed, because then the tariffs go away. That's the gameplay right there. Trump apparently actually believes that Greenland. So this is an expansionist idea that the United States hasn't had an expansionist policy in I don't even know, like almost 100 years. I'm not sure, when we took Hawaii, and the specific year we took Hawaii and made them a state, but Hawaii and Alaska, but pretty much after that we haven't attempted any expansionism since then, and so this is like Greenland is again, you get Canada, you get Greenland, and he's trying to harm, I forget, was it the Netherlands, or I think it was the Netherlands that owns Greenland, but I'm probably wrong about that, but it's one of those European countries over there close to there. I'm probably remembering that incorrect, but at any rate, it's, there's a European country involved with that actually owns Greenland, similar to how we own Puerto Rico, but they're not an actual state. Similar, Greenland is owned by a European country that, but they have their own, sort of their own country-esque sort of there, even though they're owned by that European country. So the United States wants to take Greenland, and the United States wants to take Panama, or the Panama Canal at least. So you see this expansionism already happening. Then he's talking about taking Gaza. This is, so this is what one of the things that Nazis do, is they try to expand their borders in order to promote more resources in order for the actual economic growth that they propose to their people, because their actual agenda does not promote economic growth, and that economic growth would come through the expansionism. So that is the play, and then pushing towards a World War III, so that, because they really do want an actual combat situation. Once the combat situation happens, then they can shut down government and make Trump a dictator, and that is the actual game plan for them. LGBT people will simply be eliminated slowly, not just going and arresting them and making them wear pink triangles, just slowly, because that's why, if you can't change your gender, and then they can be identified, and then when you get pulled over for speeding, or any type of activity that makes you run into the police, they can identify who you are, and then find ways to prosecute and things like that, to do it in a different way, not quite this exact same way it was done in World War II. You got to look at what is actually happening, what they're actually doing, to understand their actual agenda. Don't just assume that everything's going to happen identical to the way the Nazis did in the 1930s. It's a Nazi-like agenda. It is not the same as the Nazi agenda. And they're not necessarily trying to get rid of Jews this time. They are trying to get rid of immigrants. Now, they may eventually include Jews and things like that, and because a lot of these people are genuine neo-Nazis and hate the Jews too and think that Hitler did a good thing, unfortunately. So it's not like the Jews are completely safe either, and that we should abandon helping them if we need to. But their actual agenda is more directed towards immigrants right now. So that is really important to recognize. And I threw it all out there as best I could. I doubt anybody's going to watch this video all the way through. But if you did, and you leave a comment below, put IWE. IWE is I watched everything. And so if you put IWE, I will know you actually watched everything. I would appreciate that in the comments if you did. I doubt anybody's going to make it this far. I doubt anybody's going to watch my entire video, and I doubt anybody who watches everything would care what I have to say either. So I don't really think I'm going to change the hearts and minds of anybody, but I am just doing what I can to try to leave the world a better place than what I found it, and to work through these thoughts myself. And it's just something I see. Buddhism is about trying to maintain that neutrality and not taking sides and causing division. But when you, like, somebody is clearly trying to harm another group, whether that be immigrants or LGBT people or women or Canadians or whoever, or Republicans or Democrats, then we have to, at least on a personal level, denounce that. We can't really force other people to behave as we would like them to. So you try to maintain some level of neutrality, but we can clearly see that this government is trying to harm people, and we need to at least be aware of it so that we can try to avoid taking part in that harming, because as Buddhists, we do not want to cause other people to suffer.